Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and I have Mr. Justin Dixon in the house. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good, my man. I'm doing good. So what I like to do with my guests, I like them to start their story wherever they want to, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, no, I'll kind of start back childhood. Grew up in central Pennsylvania in a small, kind of very rural area on a small farm. And, realized kind of as I was getting out of high school that that environment was not what I wanted to live in long term. So went off to college in a, not a large area. It's called Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And then ended up after college getting down to Philadelphia and lived there for 10 years. Kind of started in my career in recruiting, and I've been doing that ever since. And in January of 2020, left my corporate job to kind of launch my own recruiting business, which was kind of perfect timing with COVID, and we can dig into that a little bit if you want. But my kind of spent the 10 years in Philly, started my real estate investing journey kind of in mid 2018 after reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Was kind of an aha moment for myself, and then was a little bit nervous because I had a mindset shift and I was married, and so I was hoping my wife would have the same mindset shift. And luckily she read it, and we kind of sat down. We're like, what the heck are we doing with our lives, with our time, with our money? And we were both working W-2 jobs at big companies in Philly, and that started our kind of journey of being a little bit more risky. We both kind of grew up in as risk averse people, but we really decided to kind of downgrade our lives a little bit in late 2019 after we bought a duplex out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually. And we had owned a condo in Philly. We actually ended up moving out to the suburbs, renting that out, all in preparation for me to go from, the W-2 to the entrepreneur. And, we kind of shifted our lifestyle so that my wife's salary could essentially compensate for our lives at that moment, and that I could kind of go off and take a risk and, start a recruiting business, but then also get more heavily involved in real estate investing. And we've been doing that ever since. She's been kind of the steady Eddie W-2, keeping the benefits and all that fun stuff. And I've been kind of going out and, building businesses and investing. And yeah, now we're living in Austin, Texas, and we've been here for a little over 2 years. So we love Austin, and yeah, it's been a good move for us so far. We can unpack any of that if you'd like.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day, a lot of with my clients, but mainly just friends and family. I really believe that the shift from W-2 to entrepreneur, that mindset, right? That loss of capital, the risk, it really is to me one of the hardest. It's not even the act of doing it. It's the identity shift and the feelings and emotions that's tied to it.
100%. I mean, and I think for me specifically, and for us, luckily we were both in lockstep that this was the path we were going down. And, it really started, kind of the preparation started in kind of mid 2019. We'd bought that duplex. I was actually, I had transitioned into a new job, a new company. I was head of recruiting for a wealth management firm in Philly. And then, I was kind of in preparation from kind of mid 2019 to stack as much capital as I possibly could to have that, 6 months or whatever of cushion. Like I said, we moved out of our very nice condo in Philly to the suburbs. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. We wouldn't go and live in the shoebox, but we downgraded where a lot of our friends were, buying houses and cars and all that fun stuff. And we were doing the exact opposite of trying to scale back our life so that, we could shrink our expenses so far that, we weren't eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for every meal, but we were consciously making decisions to, not go out as much and not do these things so that we could, again, shrink our expenses down so that Allison's salary could cover all of our lifestyle, and that we wouldn't have to dip into our savings for if we unless we absolutely needed to. And then as 2019 happened, and I went into my boss's office in early January of 2020 and said, "Hey, I'm going to quit my six-figure salary, cushy job to start a recruiting business." And flash forward, 2 or 3 months, COVID happened, and essentially put all recruiting on hold for pretty much the entire year. So, you know, that year, 2020, was challenging mentally and physically, frankly, to go from having two W-2 jobs. We were both making six figures. It was great. To then going to one salary. I was kind of, scraping by to kind of, get some clients and, try to figure it out. I was also learning I went from duplexes to 100 plus unit syndications. So I was learning the whole syndication model as well, which frankly was a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Recruiting wasn't busy at all. And so I had the time available to really immerse myself in how to underwrite a 100 unit apartment complex, I found a mentorship coaching program that really helped me learn the fundamentals of investing and raising money and all of that. And I may not have had the ability to dive into that as deeply as I did in that first year if recruiting would have been super busy. So silver linings, if you will, that was a little bit slower. But yeah, I mean, we made it through. We both, I think, because we were in lockstep from a mindset perspective of, hey, this could go nowhere, and we were prepared to. If I made $0, again, we wouldn't be out on the street. We had the financial cushion. I call it like the financial foundation. You have to have those things in place to make you feel comfortable to make those bigger, potentially life-changing decisions. And then October of 2020 came around. My wife got a job offer down here in Austin, and we moved. During the pandemic, my business wasn't thriving at the moment, but I could do real estate locally. I like Texas as an investment state, but also I could do my recruiting business, fully remotely as well. So, 2020 was rough from that standpoint, but then the last 2 years, and even so far in 23, it's been, crazy busy recruiting. Real estate's been great. Now we're kind of in this weird, interest rate hikes and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it was definitely a mindset shift for sure to kind of go, because I'm a very risk averse person myself. So the fact of kind of taking that stability of a salary, and W-2 jobs are not stable, any more stable than a business, running your own business, because being in recruiting, working at small and large companies, if a company is to make their quarter, if they're publicly traded and needed to show the street that they had a good quarter, they're going to do restructuring, which means they're going to lay people off, and you are ultimately just an expense line item on their spreadsheet. So it's no more stable than if you take the risk, and go out and do your own thing.
As you walk through all those things, you hit it on a couple times, but the reason that y'all were doing it and her being involved and being on the same page helped, because as friends are buying bigger houses and taking trips, what you're good. I'm sure there's many a times if you hadn't attached it to something bigger than the moment, that there would have been, we would want to quit, right?
Like, oh yeah. And I mean, there were times through that year, don't get me wrong, that I didn't look for a job, a W-2 job, because it was scary, because we didn't know that it was going to end, and how it would end and what it would look like, and all that. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I was solely determined at going down this one path. I definitely had doubts, and had the what the heck did I do scenario. But also, if I think about it now, if I would have said, okay, I'm going to quit in March of 2020, not knowing what would have happened, I likely wouldn't have quit. And, I may not have ever started my own business and gone down that journey as I have the last 3 years, because I would have just been so scared to actually do it. Right. So, the fact that I did it in January, and the fact that COVID didn't destroy the world, in January, was kind of nice, because I'd already done it. I'd already ripped the Band-Aid off. I'd already kind of started down this path. And, again, we had the mindset and the financial stability to actually, weather the storm. And luckily the storm, after about, 9 months, cooled, and then it was a rocket ship. And, I did, a lot of business in recruiting 21 and 22, and, real estate was great. Helped, I started out my real estate journey more on the kind of, I want to find a deal side, and on the acquisitions, and then transitioned, more on the, I'm going to be an investor relations, help, raise some capital, bring investors into the business. Because I grew up, and my financial kind of investing thesis, from my dad and mom was get a good job, work 30, 40 years, invest in your 401k, and hope that you have enough when you retire, and hope that the market is in a position where it's up and not cutting your 401k proceeds in half, overnight. So, that was my kind of, and that's what Alice and I were doing, up until 2019.
Well, I think it's interesting. That's where I want to, duplex, great place to start. And then you're talking about investor relations, you're talking about 100-unit apartments. Where was the shift, and kind of what were the steps that took you, there's like me too. I invested in, single family residence. That's where we got started. Then we went to hotels, and now we're buying businesses. It's a thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think if I would have to go back and say it again, and I just had this conversation with a client today, he's building his first house. And I was like, what did you learn in this first thing? You went from Airbnb to building a house to sell.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'd realized that you can do anything.
Oh yeah. I mean, when we started in the real estate, down that real estate path, I didn't want to go into single family because I felt like it was too big of a risk, from the standpoint that you've got one unit and one tenant, and if that tenant leaves, then you're on the hook for the entire mortgage, right? And so I liked the 2 to 4 unit. That's kind of where I wanted to sit, because one, I could afford it myself. Like Alice and I could have gone out and we bought that duplex ourselves. But two, I didn't think that I could go bigger, faster, farther. Because I literally had read the book absorbed a bunch of content on like Bigger Pockets and other podcasts, but I didn't have the ability to be like, okay, well, you can just skip all this other stuff and go right to the big stuff, right?
Justin, you'll love this. I actually think, so I coach a lot of people, it's not the knowledge that we lack, it's the emotional
100%.
understanding of that chasm to that first investment, right? Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think you automatically assume you've got to crawl before you walk, before you run, right? And that's single family, small multi, syndication, whatever you want to do. But if you listen to Bigger Pockets and all these other podcasts out there, like, there are people that jump right into syndication right away, and they just had that ability to be like, okay, I know there's other people out there that have done this or doing this. Let me just piggyback off of their track record, and that's what I've done. When I got into syndication, is I realized very quickly that even if I found a 100-unit apartment complex that made sense on an Excel spreadsheet, I didn't have the capital to buy it myself, right? I didn't have the track record to go into Fannie or Freddie and say, hey, I need a $20 million loan or $30 million loan to buy this apartment. They would have said no, get out of here, right? So you kind of realize like, okay, I need to partner with people and build a business and a framework around these apartment complexes. And my recruiting background has kind of helped, because I realized, okay, I'm good at this piece of this big jigsaw, right? And I need to find other people to kind of place into those other areas that have the track record, have the capital, have the experience. And that's what you kind of get into when you get into like some of these coaching and mentorship programs, is you get a bit of that ecosystem to make you feel more comfortable that you can go out and say, hey, I either found this deal and I think it makes sense, or hey, I'm working with this operator, and I'm going out to my investor network and saying, hey, I know, like, and trust this person. I think they're a good operator. Here's some of their experiences. I'm putting my money up, and investing in this opportunity as well. And here's, if you want to do the same, come join me, kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of progression, but some people skip steps, and that's totally fine.
This is an interesting conversation. You don't know any of these things, but I'm about to tell you. We're in the process of looking at 3 recruiting firms to buy right now. I myself have been doing the hiring for my company that we're buying. I've hired 14 people in the last 5 weeks in a sector that they say you can't find anybody.
Yeah.
Right. But I tell you what, and I really hope I don't enjoy this for a long period of time, because it's a lot of work. But I really enjoy getting people a job, finding the right person for the position. There is something about that job, right? Not to like hyperbole, but that job changes how their environment is, who they're doing work with, their family's life. When you think of it in these bigger terms, it matters, man. You spend a
Yeah.
lot of your time at work,
Yeah, no, and I think when I first got into it, I fell into recruiting, right? I got out of college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a business degree from a state school here in Pennsylvania or in Pennsylvania, and you know I saw a job ad for like a recruiter, and I had taken an HR course in college. I was like, oh, cool, I can do that. It's HR, right? And then you realize very quickly that a lot of recruiting is sales, and I got into it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to help people. People are going to love me because I'm helping them find a job. 99% of them don't care. They say it's your job to help me find a job, and you know, but there are people that I've built pretty good relationships with over the years that I've helped them get a job, or I've introduced them to a company that they ended up getting a job at, or and they send you a thank you card, or they thank you in other ways that it kind of keeps the light burning, if you will, and keeps you wanting to do it. I do recruiting because I'm good at it and I don't find it that difficult. But my wife, she's in HR for a tech company, and that's a one part of HR that she's like, I'm never doing. Like, I don't want to sit here and look at LinkedIn and reach out to people, and I also don't want to have the same conversation 1,000 times a day with candidates and ask them all about their job history and all that fun stuff. But I've been doing it so long and I'm good at it. Like, I'm just like, okay, I can do it. No big deal. And also the flip side of it, you can make good money at it if you're good at it. So, the economics are there, and that's, luckily we've pivoted a few times and kind of like, what's our direction? And originally the recruiting business was going to just sustain, kind of replace my salary. And then I was going to spend a lot of my time on real estate. Well, then obviously COVID happened, and that didn't I shifted mainly 99% of my effort to real estate and learning that business. And then in 21, when the world opened up and hiring started going like crazy, then I was like, okay, well, I'm putting all my effort in recruiting because I can make a lot of money, but then I can take that money and put it right back into real estate, because our mindset from my wife's salary still covers all of our expenses, right? So my money that I generate in recruiting goes right into real estate. I've thought about hiring people. Right now it's just me, but I keep the whole pie. So it's like I don't have to have the headaches and all that fun stuff. But 2023, I'm going to start to diversify and start to hire some people, I think. But yeah, so we've kind of pivoted, like what's our focus, and I think that's okay.
Well, I think it's a super smart way to look at financial income. You're almost treating it like how I've heard sports athletes, like their contract pays for their life, and then the endorsements are for investments, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a very smart way, because then you have no attachment to that money, because you know exactly what it's supposed to do. Like
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get money in, I get a placement fee, and then I'm like, okay, where can I deploy this? I take out taxes, right? Because you had to pay taxes, but I say, okay, where can I deploy this? And the vast majority of the money that I've generated has been into real estate. And now 2023, I'm starting to look at different investment options. Like a buddy of mine, actually back in Philly, he bought a small business. He's a W-2 worker. And he's like, I wanted to buy this small business so I can just, it generates income, right? It's just like a syndication. I'm going to operate it. And he's a financial guy. So he's like, I can, look at the financials and be like, yep, this is a good buy. And he's realizing it's not as passive as he thought it was going to be. But there's a little bit more work. It's a flower shop, so there's a little bit more like and personal management to deal with. But now I'm starting to look at, okay, I joined a Central Texas angel investor fund or network, so I can start to look at startups and be seed capital. And, so there's a lot of things once you kind of open your eyes and get, access to different people and different networks, that like, there's a ton of options out there that you just don't know about if you're just sitting in a W-2 job and you think your only investment options are the stock market or your company's 401k, right? And luckily I've had the opportunity to help people think outside of that, investment box, if you will, and look at different options, because you don't have to be a millionaire or multimillionaire to get access to some of this stuff. But yeah, it's just something you just don't know about. So it's kind of interesting.
So I would say the number one thing I hear from anybody, especially in the real estate space, is, how do I raise money? How do I do this thing? Right? What aspects of your raising money or syndications, that's probably the number one question I get. What aspects have you had to learn over the time? Is there resources? How did you learn those things?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I had to get over was, well, one, imposter syndrome, right? Because that was, you just don't think that anybody cares about what you're doing, and you think that other people are way more successful. So why would people listen to me? Um, and then the other thing is, my whole career and my whole kind of brand has been around recruiting. So I've been always just in the recruiter, and then I started posting content about real estate, and then it started to change people's perspectives of like, well, okay, he's doing like some other stuff, some other cool stuff on the side here. And then you start talking about, you get on podcasts and you're talking about, okay, here's all the things that I've done, here's all the units that I've invested in, and help raise money on all these things. And I'm not a capital raising expert, I'll just put that out there in the beginning. Like, I'm still learning, this is still a journey for me. Um, but I also take a little bit more of a direct personal approach. Like, I don't have a 10,000 person, investment database that I just blast emails out to. I've got a handful of people that I know, like, and trust, and they know, like, and trust me. And, I know that they have some income that they could deploy. And I kind of create a very personalized kind of pitch to, if Austin, if you were in my database, I'd be like, hey, Austin, like, here's a deal that I'm looking at. I'm going to invest in this deal, and here's why. If you're interested, let's talk more. I'm not a salesperson. So I don't want to ever sell you on an opportunity or a deal. I want to give you as much information as you need to make a decision. And if that decision is to invest, great. If it's not, great. We'll wait till the next one. Because I've talked to a couple of people that have been in the game longer than I have, and have been, both on the LP and the GP side. And there are some syndicates out there that they sell you on the deal, and you kind of walk out of it like you walked out of a car dealership. You kind of feel like, oh, I just gave this person 50, 100, $200,000, and maybe the deal works out and then it's great, but just that first interaction is just a little bit, leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So my whole philosophy around capital raising is, I'm gonna invest in as many deals that I bring to you as possible. I can't do every one because I'm not a multimillionaire yet. But here's the opportunity. Here's the information on why I'm gonna invest, or why maybe you would like to invest. Um, and then if you want to, let's move forward. But it's more of a one to one instead of one to many kind of approach.
Yeah, and for me, that's the way I roll too. And it creates more, not exclusivity is not the word, but it creates more care. And I actually thought about this than just, I have this problem with wholesalers. It's like they're just looking to get a fish in the boat. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what, fish, right?
Yep.
Like, I just can't, like, mentally, I can't do that. It doesn't work for me.
No, I would rather, raise on, 4, 5, 6 deals a year than raise on 10 or 20, and have this massive database of people that I just don't know who they are really, right? I have enough to have a substantive relationship to qualify for the SEC guidelines. But, I want to be able to, and also, people, once they invest, they may not be a savvy real estate investor. So they're going to have questions, right? And you need to be able to be available, to take their calls and their texts. And you may not have the answers because you didn't find the deals, but you've got to go talk to the GPs and be like, hey, dude, what's going on with this deal? We haven't seen an update yet, or when are distributions going to come out, or why did we pause them, and all that fun stuff. Because one thing I've realized is, now I'm this way, like, I would rather hear bad news, like a deal, hey, we had to pause distributions because interest rates have gone up and we're on variable rate. We didn't anticipate this. Here's what we're doing to try to mitigate that so we can get back on track with your distributions, than to just hear radio silence, right? I'd rather hear bad news to be informed on what's going on than to be like, I'm just sitting here with like, what's going on with the money that I've invested.
No, 100%. So anybody that's listening out there that has a W-2, that's on the fence, or they're invested in one deal, you and your wife got on the same page, you moved cities. Now things are, taking care of themselves and it's growing. What would be your kind of advice for them if they're looking to get started, or they're kind of had got started already in it?
Yeah. It's funny when I started pushing out like content on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot because obviously recruiting is 99% done on LinkedIn. I started talking to people that I used to work with at previous companies, and like, oh yeah, I've invested in like a single family house, or they did like roof stock and they bought like a turnkey property or something. But that's kind of they only have this little narrow window of like real estate. People think like single family, whatever. My advice, if you're sitting in a W-2 and whether you love your job or you don't like your job, but you like the stability of a W-2 job and the salary, but you want to have other options, absorb as much content as you possibly can. Listen to podcasts. There's a lot of good information out there, but then you've got to find a person or a few people that like and trust that are more heavily involved in real estate, that they can bring you opportunities, right? It's just like anything. If you want to get access to deals, you need to go find people that are doing deals, or find people that are raising money for multiple people that are doing deals. Because you know if you want to start to really get involved in real estate, but you don't want to put as much time into it, you've got to find people that are putting the time into it to then bring you those opportunities. So that's one thing. If I was going to go back, or if I would have never got out of the W-2 hamster wheel, but I wanted to invest in real estate, I would have found people like myself that are kind of invested in this and doing this on a regular basis. Because that's half the battle. You need to bet on the person that's bringing you that deal, that they're vetting that deal appropriately, to then you feel comfortable.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I mean, the amount of charlatans that there's out there in the real estate. I mean, it's just, it must be every week. I keep hearing about this, and it's not that. My favorite Warren Buffett quote is like, "Let the tide go out and see who's wearing swim trunks."
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that everybody's out there bad, but you do need to make sure, like, don't be so excited to get in a deal that you just ignore the kind of red flags or anything that comes up. Like, trust your gut.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing, I'm in two industries that there are very low barriers to entry: recruiting and real estate syndications. You don't have to have a degree, you don't have to have a special license or anything to really do what I'm doing. And that's great for people that want to get started. There's not a lot of upfront capital. But the negative is there's a ton of them, right? And there's a ton of bad ones. And so, that's the challenge. Is everybody's got a shiny object that they're trying to sell or they're trying to pitch, right? Here's an A-class deal in Austin, or a B-class deal in Jacksonville, Florida. Or, hey, I'm a staffing firm and I can help you find the next great talent. But I've been doing it long enough, and I worked on both sides of the desk from a recruiting perspective. I was in corporate, I use staffing firms, and there's a lot of bad ones out there. And just like there's a lot of bad flash in the pan syndicators, and I'm not saying that, I'm above or I'm better than, but that's the thing that I think, if you're W-2, or even if you're just getting started in the real estate game and you want to invest passively, you've got to do your due diligence on the people that you're investing through. Because if you're not going to put in the time to learn enough about real estate to be a general partner and actually get access to those deals, but you still want to be a limited partner and still do your W-2, you've got to do some diligence on the people that you're investing with. So that, because if you don't know, like, and trust them, it could turn out not awesome.
I love it. If people want to find out, they want to follow you, they want to reach out to you, they want to ask questions, how would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. Send me a message on that. My real estate investing business is greatventurecapital.com, and my email for that is just justin@greatventurecapital.com. So either way, it'll get to me. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Wonderful. I've watched you and your wife come down there, create a new life for yourself, and I've watched you continue to expand. And it's just, it's really great. Somebody's so focused and putting in the work. Really.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Guys, if you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.